Welcome to the All Sorts podcast and to the deep dive. You know that segment where we kind of go deep, right, on the stuff you send us.
Yeah, really trying to get into it.
Yeah, and try to like figure out what the story is with whatever it is y'all are sending us. And today we're diving into something really cool, I think.
This one's exciting.
Yeah, and that's the Chengdu J-20 stealth fighter.
The Mighty Dragon.
Yeah, the Mighty Dragon. Oh man, that's so cool. So we've got a bunch of articles and reports that y'all sent in to us all about this. And what we're going to do is try to put it all together for you.
We'll take a look at how it came to be, the J-20.
Yeah, how it's developed and the kinds of things that make it special, the things that make it tick.
Kind of a deep dive into the design of it, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
And then also operationally how it's actually used.
Right, because that's a whole different thing, right? You could design something, but then you have to actually use it.
Yeah, does it live up to what it's, expected to do?
Exactly. So, so our goal here is really to help you understand, like, what makes the J-20 such a big deal, right?
Like, why is everyone talking about it?
Yeah, like, is it really something to be, worried about or excited about, depending on where you are in the world? What are its capabilities?
Yeah.
And yeah, what are the kind of the implications of it strategically?
Right. And so the story of this mighty dragon starts back in the late 1990s.
Way back then, huh?
Yeah, with a program called JXX. And, this was kind of like the initial idea for a next generation fighter for China.
I see.
And then Chengdu Aircraft Corporation, they stepped up with a proposal that became known as Project 718. And that's the one that really caught the PLAF's eye.
PLAAF, that's the People's Liberation Army Air Force, right?
That's right. And they ended up giving it their endorsement back in 2008.
So it took, like almost a decade to go from that like initial seed of an idea to a program that's actually being funded.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, that kind of tells you how difficult and how complex it is to develop an aircraft like this.
Yeah, that's a long time to be working on something. Must have been a lot of back and forth.
Lots of revisions and things like that.
Yeah, I bet. But then, once they got that endorsement, things started moving pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. Things accelerated.
We saw that initial prototype take to the skies in January 2011.
It was designated 2001.
2001, okay.
And that was a really important moment because it, showed that this thing was actually taking shape.
It wasn't just drawings on a piece of paper anymore.
Right. And then, a few years later, in 2016, it was publicly revealed at the China International Aviation and Aerospace Exhibition.
Oh, wow. So like a big debut for the world to see.
Yeah, put it on display for everyone to see.
That must have caused quite a stir in the, in the aviation world.
I'm sure it did. Yeah, people were trying to figure out, what is this thing? What can it do?
Yeah, what are they up to over there? But it wasn't just a showpiece, right? It actually entered service pretty quickly after that, like in March 2017.
Yeah, they started actually using it, getting it into the hands of pilots.
And then just like less than a year later, they formed the first combat unit in February 2018.
So that made China only the second country in the world to actually have an operational stealth aircraft.
That's a pretty big deal.
It's a huge milestone, yeah.
They were really moving fast, like trying to catch up and surpass maybe even.
It seems that way, yeah. And in the sources we looked at, they all point to a very focused effort on getting this technology ready for, for the real world.
So they weren't messing around?
No, not at all.
And they actually started that LRIP, that low-rate initial production, in December 2015.
So that means they were building a small number of these aircraft to test them out, find any problems, make improvements before going into full-scale production.
Gotcha. So it's like a beta test almost.
Yeah, exactly. Getting feedback from pilots, seeing how it performs in different conditions.
And by October 2017, they had finalized the design, and it was ready to be mass-produced and deployed in combat.
So in just a couple of years, they went from those initial prototypes to a combat-ready aircraft. That's really impressive.
Yeah, that's a really short time frame for something as complex as this. I mean, we're talking about a cutting-edge stealth fighter here.
Yeah, and it wasn't just one design, right? They were constantly iterating, improving. We saw those different prototypes, like the 2011 version.
Right. And that one has some really interesting features, like those diverterless supersonic intakes, the DSIs.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. They basically allow air to flow into the engine at supersonic speeds without needing those big, bulky diverters that can show up on radar.
So it's a way to improve both performance and stealth at the same time.
Exactly. Two birds with one stone.
Yeah, that's smart. And it also had things like targeting pods and infrared sensors, hinting that it might be able to do more than just air-to-air combat.
Right. It was showing signs of being a multi-role aircraft capable of attacking ground targets as well.
So they were thinking ahead, planning for different scenarios.
Absolutely. And you can see how much effort they put into refining the design. They streamlined the fairings, redesigned the vertical stabilizers.
Right, all those little details add up.
Yeah, every little bit helps when you're trying to make an aircraft as aerodynamic and stealthy as possible.
And even after they finalized the design in 2017, they didn't just stop there.
No, they kept going.
We saw new versions popping up in March 2018. It's like they were always looking for ways to make it even better.
It shows a real commitment to pushing the boundaries, not being satisfied with just good enough.
Yeah, always striving for that edge. And then in January 2019, we started hearing rumors about a twin-seat variant.
2 pilots in a stealth fighter. Can you imagine?
Whoa, yeah, what would they even do with that?
Well, the speculation was that it would be used for things like tactical bombing, electronic warfare, maybe even carrier strike.
So basically a whole bunch of different roles, like a Swiss Army knife of stealth fighters.
Yeah, very versatile,
Yeah.
capable of handling all sorts of missions.
Man, they were really thinking big with this one.
And then in November 2019, we saw the J-20 testing out those new WS-10 Taihang engines.
Oh yeah, the ones with those cool serrated afterburner nozzles.
Exactly. Those serrations help to reduce the heat signature and radar signature from the rear, making it harder to detect.
So it's not just about being stealthy from the front. They were thinking about all angles.
360 degrees of stealth.
And around that same time, they stopped using those Russian engines in the J-20.
Yeah, they decided to go all in on their own technology.
Must have been a big decision, right? To rely on their own engines instead of importing them.
I think it was a statement showing that China's aerospace industry had reached a new level of maturity and self-reliance.
Yeah, like saying, we can do this ourselves.
Exactly.
And then in July 2020, they unveiled a J-20 with thrust vectoring control.
Now that's some next-level maneuverability.
I bet. So thrust vectoring basically means they can direct the engine exhaust to help the aircraft turn and maneuver more sharply, right?
Right. It gives them incredible control over the aircraft, making it even more agile in dogfights.
So, like, it can practically dance in the sky.
Pretty much. And there was a lot of back and forth about which engine was actually powering that version.
Yeah, people were trying to figure out if it was a WS-10 variant or even a Russian engine.
It was a bit of a mystery for a while.
Yeah, they were keeping their cards close to their chest.
Definitely. But then in January 2021, they announced they were going with the WS-10C engine as a kind of a stopgap solution.
Before they had the WS-15 ready to go, right?
Exactly. And the WS-10C is pretty comparable to the Russian AL-31F in terms of performance.
So another step towards self-reliance.
And they even did a public demonstration of a J-20A powered by the WS-10C in September 2021.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing that. It was all over the news.
Putting on a show for the world, showing off their progress.
Yeah, flexing their aviation muscles.
So they had the single-seat versions, constantly being upgraded. And then finally, in November 2024, they officially announced the twin-seat J-20S.
The rumors were true.
It was a long time coming, yeah.
And what a beast it is, from air superiority to precision strikes to manned-unmanned teaming, electronic warfare. It can practically do it all.
It's a real multi-role powerhouse.
And then there's the WS-15 engine. Flight trials started in March 2022, mass production kicking off in March 2023.
This is the engine that's going to really take the J-20 to the next level.
The one that's going to give it supercruise, even better maneuverability, more thrust than the F-22 and F-35.
The works.
I mean, that's some serious power, and it can even allow them to add even more advanced technology in the future.
Like directed energy weapons or even more sophisticated sensors?
Wow, they're thinking way ahead.
They are, and in 2024, we saw those clear photos of a J-20A flying with the WS-15. It was no longer just a rumor.
They're finally putting it all together.
Yeah, and the Pentagon even reported that the J-20 was getting a bunch of upgrades.
Like more weapons carrying capacity, thrust vectoring controls for those unmanned combat aerial vehicles.
They were packing it full of new technology.
And then to top it off, the J-20S prototype 2035 took flight in December 2024, acting as a chase plane for the Chengdu J-36.
So that twin-seat version is really coming along.
It's all starting to come together. It's like watching a dragon grow wings,
And speaking of the Dragon, let's talk about its design. What makes it so special?
Yeah, let's dive into that. So we've got a twin-engine, all-weather stealth fighter here.
Designed primarily as an air superiority fighter, but with the ability to carry out precision strikes as well.
It's got that dual-role capability.
Very versatile. And of course, we've got those different variants, the J-20AB with thrust vectoring, the twin-seat J-20S.
adding even more flexibility to its mission set.
Expanding its options. And what's really interesting is the way they've designed it aerodynamically, with those leading-edge extensions and the canard layout.
Canards, those are those small wing-like surfaces at the front,
Right, exactly. And they actually generate lift along with the main wing, allowing the J-20 to have a smaller main wing.
So it reduces drag at supersonic speeds.
But it doesn't sacrifice lift at lower speeds, which is what you need for maneuvering.
It's like they found a way to have their cake and eat it, too.
And it works really well. It gives the J-20 incredible maneuverability and allows it to fly efficiently at high speeds.
That's a pretty clever design. I mean, who would have thought that putting little wings at the front would make such a big difference?
Well, it's not just the canards. It's how they work together with the leading-edge extensions and the shape of the fuselage.
So it's like a whole system working in harmony.
Exactly. Every part contributes to the overall performance, and then you've got that bubble canopy giving the pilot amazing visibility.
And those extensive flight control surfaces, all those little flaps and ailerons.
Which, combined with the canards, really point towards an aircraft that's designed for those intense, close-range dogfights.
So it's not afraid to get up close and personal.
No, not at all.
And one source even said its maneuverability is comparable to the J-10.
But with the added advantage of stealth, of course.
So it's like they took a very agile fighter and made it invisible?
It's a pretty potent combination.
Now let's talk about the brains of the operation, the avionics in the cockpit.
This is where it gets really high-tech.
Yeah, and the goal here is clear, right?
Yeah.
They want the J-20's pilot to have the best possible situational awareness,
Knowing what's going on all around them long before the enemy does.
while at the same time keeping their own aircraft hidden from enemy sensors.
Denying the enemy that same level of information, it's all about information dominance.
And they've got a whole suite of sensors to do that,
Yeah.
using different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Multispectral sensors, giving them a complete picture of the battle space.
It's not just radar, it's infrared, electro-optical, the whole shebang.
And they've been pretty secretive about their radar, but it's widely believed to be an SA radar.
Active electronically scanned array, right?
That's the one. And it's a game changer compared to older radar systems, much faster scanning, able to track multiple targets, very resistant to jamming.
Oh, it's like having eyes everywhere.
And some people think it might even be more powerful than what they described in a Chinese military study from 2003.
Which talked about being able to track targets over 120 miles away.
That's a long way.
So they might be able to see you coming long before you see them.
It would give them a significant advantage in combat.
And in addition to the radar, they've got those infrared sensors.
So they can detect the heat signatures of aircraft.
Even if the radar can't pick them up.
It's a way to see without being seen.
Very sneaky. And then there's the communication suite, allowing them to share data with other friendly aircraft and systems.
So it's not just a lone wolf, it's part of a network.
A network of sensors and weapons working together.
That's the future of warfare.
Now let's talk firepower. The J-20 is packing some serious heat.
Yeah, it's got that main internal weapon bay that can hold those long-range air-to-air missiles.
Like the PL-15 and the even longer-range PL-21.
And it can also carry those precision-guided munitions for attacking ground targets.
So it's got options, depending on the mission.
And it's all internal, which is crucial for maintaining stealth.
Can't have those missiles hanging off the wings and ruining your radar signature.
And then there are those two smaller side bays for those short-range air-to-air missiles.
And what's really cool is that the bay doors close before the missile is fired.
So they can launch those missiles really quickly without exposing the weapon bay for very long.
Minimizing their radar signature, very sneaky.
They've thought of everything, and typically they carry 4 of those medium or long-range missiles in the main bay and 1 short-range missile in each side bay.
But there are reports that they're working on ways to increase that even more.
Yeah, trying to figure out how to fit even more missiles in there while still maintaining stealth.
Like maybe arranging them in a staggered configuration.
And using missiles with foldable control surfaces.
It's like a high-tech game of Tetris.
They're pushing the limits of what's possible.
And they're even developing a new missile, the PL-16, specifically designed to be thinner so they can fit more of them inside.
Tailoring the weapons to the aircraft, maximizing its firepower.
So those air-to-air missiles, they're primarily for taking out other aircraft, right? Establishing air superiority.
And neutralizing those high-value targets like AOACS and tankers.
But it can also carry those anti-radiation missiles to take out enemy radars.
And those precision-guided munitions to hit specific ground targets.
So it's not just an air-to-air platform, it's got that multi-role capability.
It can handle a variety of missions.
And interestingly enough, it doesn't have an internal cannon.
No gun. That's a bit unusual for a fighter.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we're confident we can take you out at long range.
Relying on those missiles and sensors to keep the enemy at a distance.
But of course, they can always add external fuel tanks if they need to.
To extend the range, although that would make them less stealthy.
And we've even seen photos of it in beast mode with a ton of external weapons.
Yeah, showing that they can trade some stealth for extra firepower if they need to.
Adapting to the situation, that's smart. And all of this, of course, is powered by those amazing engines.
The heart of the dragon.
And they've gone through this whole evolution of engines, starting with those Russian AL-31F variants.
Which were reliable, but ultimately they wanted to be self-sufficient.
So they moved to the WS-10 series.
A big step forward for their domestic engine industry.
The early low-rate production models used the WS-10BJ, and then some of the early J-20As used the AL-31FM2.
But then they started using the WS-10C in the later J-20As.
Which was a big improvement, more thrust, those serrated nozzles for stealth.
And even the ability to cruise at supersonic speeds for short periods.
So they were getting closer and closer to that super cruise capability.
And they were testing out different engine configurations for that thrust vectoring version, the J-20B.
But some people said it was the AL-31FM2, others said it was a WS-10 variant.
They were trying out different things, seeing what worked best.
And then there's the WS-15, the holy grail of J-20 engines.
180 kilonewtons of thrust. That's a beast.
Super Cruise, incredible maneuverability, more thrust than the F-22 and F-35.
It's going to be a game changer.
And they started mass producing them in April 2023.
With prototypes flying with 2 WS-15s by June 2023.
So they're really making progress. It's only a matter of time before all those J-20s are powered by the WS-15.
And that's when things are going to get really interesting.
Yeah, the Dragon's going to be fully unleashed.
Watch out.
And make sure it can fly those long missions. It's got that retractable refueling probe.
Extending its range without sacrificing stealth.
They've thought of everything, and now let's talk stealth. That's what really sets it apart.
The defining characteristic of a 5th-generation fighter.
And they've gone to great lengths to make the J-20 as stealthy as possible.
It's all about minimizing that radar cross-section, making it practically invisible to enemy radar.
And they've used a whole bunch of different techniques to achieve that.
It's not just one thing, it's a combination of shaping, materials, and clever design features.
Like those canards and the leading-edge root extensions. Those are tricky to make stealthy, but they've managed to do it.
It's a testament to their aerodynamic and stealth design skills.
And then you've got the chined forebody, that angular shape at the front.
The specially designed radar radome to deflect radar waves away from the antenna.
The electroconductive canopy to prevent radar reflections from the cockpit.
The diverterless supersonic intakes, the DSIs.
And those S-duct inlets that hide the engine faces from radar.
It's a multi-layered approach to stealth.
And they've even got those sawtooth edges on the doors and access panels.
To scatter radar waves, making it even harder to detect.
Mesh coverings on the cooling ports, embedded antennas, radar-absorbent coatings.
Every little detail matters when it comes to stealth.
It's like they've gone over every inch of the aircraft with a fine-tooth comb, looking for ways to make it disappear.
And it seems to be working. Some sources say it's even stealthier than the Russian Pak-A from the front.
Although maybe not quite as stealthy as the F-35 overall.
But they're constantly improving it, with each new batch of J-20s being even stealthier than the last.
So it's like a moving target for enemy radar, always evolving.
And they even use those retractable Lundberg lenses during training.
Which basically make the aircraft more visible on radar, so they don't accidentally spook anyone.
And to hide its true stealth capabilities from prying eyes.
It's like a magician's trick, making it appear and disappear at will.
Pretty impressive, right?
Absolutely. And now let's talk about how they've actually used this technological marvel, its operational history.
From prototype to combat-ready aircraft.
Yeah, so those first high-speed taxiing tests were back in December 2010.
Getting ready for that first flight.
And then in January 2011, it finally took to the skies.
A historic moment.
And they spent the next few years really putting it through its paces.
With all those different prototypes, testing out different modifications and engine configurations.
It's like a giant flying laboratory.
Gathering data, refining the design.
And by March 2017, they had achieved initial operational capability.
So it was ready for limited service and pilot training.
And they didn't waste any time. In January 2018, they had it participating in its first combat exercise.
Pitting it against 4th-generation fighters in beyond visual range engagements.
So those are engagements where the aircraft are too far apart to see each other.
They're relying on their sensors and missiles to fight.
And they were even doing night confrontation missions, practicing those tactical scenarios.
Getting ready for the real deal.
And then in February 2018, it officially entered frontline service with the 9th Fighter Brigade.
A first of many.
And in August 2019, they made a big decision. They selected the J-20 to be the plan's future primary fighter.
That's the People's Liberation Army Navy.
So it's not just for the Air Force. They're planning to use it on their aircraft carriers as well.
Expanding its role even further.
It might need some modifications to fit on those carriers, though.
Yeah, it's a bit of a big bird.
But they'll figure it out. They've got some clever engineers.
And by June 2021, they were deploying them to those units, monitoring the East China Sea and Taiwan Strait.
Strategically important areas.
Definitely. And by 2022, they were operating across all 5 theater commands.
Showing just how important they've become to China's military strategy.
It's a core part of their air power.
And in March 2022, we got that confirmation from a U.S. Air Force general that F-35s had encountered J-20s over the East China Sea.
So they're facing off against the best of the best.
And the J-20 started those regular patrols in the South China Sea in April 2022.
Projecting power in that strategically important region.
And by June 2024, reports suggested that as many as 12 brigades were equipped with J-20s.
That's a lot of stealth fighters.
And they're prioritizing those air bases near China's maritime borders.
Makes sense given its long combat range.
It's perfect for those high-speed intercepts, strategic area defense, and long-range strike missions.
A real force multiplier for China's military.
And even the U.S. Marine Corps took notice. They created a full-scale replica of a J-20 back in December 2018.
For training purposes, to help their pilots recognize it and understand its capabilities.
They're not taking any chances. They're taking this thing seriously.
It's a sign of respect, in a way.
And they're not resting on their laurels. China is already testing drone swarms with the J-20.
Yeah, imagine a stealth fighter leading a pack of drones.
That's a scary thought, especially for those older aircraft like the F-22.
It could be a game changer in air combat.
And the twin-seat J-20S is designed specifically to control those drones.
Like a loyal wingman.
And even the U.S. Air Force is looking into that concept.
They're realizing that this is the future of air warfare.
And it's interesting how differently the West and China view the J-20's role.
Yeah, the West tends to focus on its anti-accessoria denial capabilities,
keeping adversaries away from China's territory,
while China emphasizes its air superiority role.
Taking on the best enemy fighters and winning.
It's all about perspective, I guess.
So what does all this mean? We've gone through the development, the design, the operations of the J-20.
It's been quite a journey.
And what we see is a truly impressive piece of engineering, a symbol of China's growing technological prowess.
They've developed a cutting-edge stealth fighter with advanced capabilities.
And they're deploying it in increasing numbers, strategically positioning it to protect their interests.
It's a force to be reckoned with.
And the implications are huge. It's changing the balance of power in the region.
And it's forcing other countries to rethink their own air power strategies.
So we leave you with this thought. How will the J-20, with its drone control capabilities and potential future advancements, change the face of air combat?
It's a question that's going to keep military analysts and policymakers up at night for years to come.
And that's it for this deep dive into the mighty dragon.
Hope you enjoyed the flight.
Yeah, if you found this interesting and you want to learn more about other fascinating topics, make sure you check out the All Sorts podcast on YouTube. Give us a like, share this episode with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future deep dives.
We've got a whole archive of episodes waiting for you.
And you can find us on X, Instagram, and Threads as well. We're always posting interesting stuff over there.
Join the conversation.
That's right. The more the merrier.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of All Sorts.
Until then, keep exploring.
And keep those questions coming.